At Christmas dinner, just seconds after my grandfather lifted his glass, he smiled and asked, "So Mia, how do you like the house?" My mother's wineglass shattered red, soaking the tablecloth like a warning. My father went stiff. Tyler's eyes dropped. I whispered, "What house?" Grandpa and the entire room froze. They didn't know I already had the email, the one congratulating me on selling a home I never knew existed. They didn't know I'd tracked the signatures, the fake stories, the loan taken in my grandfather's name, and they definitely didn't know I'd come to that dinner prepared. What they thought was a celebration was actually an ambush, and not for me. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. I wish I could say that night was just another tense holiday moment, one of those things families laugh about later. But what happened at that table wasn't an accident. It was the moment every buried secret started clawing its way to the surface. I didn't grow up in the kind of family people imagine when they hear the name Lawson. From the outside, we looked polished holiday photos in matching sweaters, perfect smiles, perfect lighting, a perfect lie. Inside, everything was sharp edges and quiet ranking. One of my earliest memories is a winter morning when I was 8. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and toasted bread. Tyler sat at the table, kicking his legs, waiting. Mom placed a stack of waffles drowning in whipped cream in front of him. Then she slid a single plain waffle onto my plate, no syrup, no butter. "You don't need all that sugar, sweetheart," she said without looking at me. Tyler grinned. I took a bite of the dry waffle, pretending it didn't bother me. That was the beginning, small imbalances that grew into something much heavier. Another memory sits under the buzzing lights of my school auditorium. I had just won first place in a city art contest. I scanned the crowd for my parents while holding my ribbon with sweaty fingers. They arrived late, loud apologies echoing around the room. When we walked out, Mom wrapped her arm around Tyler and lifted the science trophy he'd won weeks earlier. "This is the kind of achievement colleges care about," she said proudly. My ribbon felt lighter in my hand. That night, I put it in a shoebox under my bed, unsure if anyone would ever ask about it again. Holidays were the easiest place to pretend everything was normal. Thanksgiving smelled like rosemary turkey and tension buried under polite conversation. Christmas sparkled, but unevenly. When I was 16, Tyler unwrapped the newest gaming console while I opened a planner with my initials printed in fading gold. "Maybe this will help you get organized," Mom said, smiling like she'd given me something meaningful. I thanked her. I always thanked her. By the time I reached college, I learned to make myself small. I worked early barista shifts and late retail shifts, saving every dollar. One month, I sent home $300 to help with bills. A week later, Tyler posted photos from a beach trip with his friends. The caption said, "Thanks, fam." That was the first time a slow, quiet anger settled under my ribs. At 24, everything cracked. The bills, the pressure, the comparisons, I collapsed under it. I remember sitting on the floor of my apartment surrounded by laundry, too exhausted to move. When I told Mom I was overwhelmed, she sighed like I'd inconvenienced her. "Mia, if you can't even take care of yourself, how can we trust you with anything important?" I didn't know then how weaponized that sentence would become later. The only place that didn't feel suffocating was Henry's office. He'd look up when I walked in, smile, like he actually saw me. His shelves were filled with old ledgers and framed construction photos, proof of everything he'd built with his own hands. "There's my girl," he always said. With him, I wasn't a disappointment. I wasn't a comparison. I was enough. I didn't know it yet, but every quiet wound, every ignored accomplishment, every moment I learned to shrink, those pieces were stacking up. They were waiting, building toward the day my family's perfect facade would finally crack. Pacific Lane first entered my life on a warm afternoon when I was 22. Henry and I were walking after lunch, the sun catching on the leaves overhead. The houses were quiet, bright, each porch framed with climbing jasmine. He paused in front of one with wide windows. One day, he said, "I want you to have a place with this kind of light." I thought he meant a metaphor, some gentle encouragement to keep going. I didn't know he meant it literally. By 28, the vision of that street had become a kind of escape hatch in my mind, especially on nights when my apartment felt too tight. The heater rattled like it was shaking apart. The pipes in the wall groaned every time anyone on the floor flushed. My bank account lived in a permanent state of warning red. Still, the space cramped as it was belonged to me. No one controlled it. No one judged me in it. Most mornings, I met Jade at the corner cafe, a place with flickering neon and coffee that was somehow both burnt and weak. She'd sketch logo drafts with a pencil stuck in her bun, tapping her foot in frustration. "How's the Carter Circus?" she'd ask without looking up. I'd smirk, performing nightly. She'd roll her eyes and say something like, "Honestly, your family needs a PR team?" I'd remind her my mother was a PR professional. We'd laugh, even when it wasn't funny. Still, distance was the only thing that made being around my parents bearable. Whenever I visited, Mom greeted me with a tight-lipped smile and a quick scan of my face as if tallying flaws. "You look tired," she'd say, not concerned, critical. Dad would ask, "So, what exactly do you do in marketing again?" in the tone of someone convinced I was lying about having a job. Tyler rarely looked up from his phone. He didn't have to. He already knew he was the star of the family. The contrast between them and Henry was almost disorienting. His office smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. His desk was littered with handwritten notes, building sketches, contracts decades old. When he spoke to me, he didn't rush. He didn't judge. "Sit," he'd say, motioning to the leather chair. "Tell me what you're working on." Even when my updates were small or unremarkable, he listened like they were milestones. One afternoon, he reached into a drawer and handed me a velvet box. Inside was a silver ring, simple, heavy, worn around the edges. "It was your grandmother's," he said. "When you're unsure, hold on to it. She believed movement was better than standing still even when she didn't know the path." The ring became a habit, something my fingers reached for before my mind realized it. And yet, even with Henry's steady presence, there was a part of my life that always felt temporary. My apartment. My work. My footing in the world. I'd catch myself staring out the window at night, thinking about stability, about having something untouched by anyone else, something rooted. I didn't know that Henry had already acted on that same fear for me. I didn't know he'd made plans, signatures, decisions, quiet ones, meant to give me the chance no one else believed I deserved. And I definitely didn't know that the people closest to me were already undoing those plans behind his back. Everything was already shifting under the surface. I just hadn't seen the cracks yet. The unraveling began with an email I almost ignored. It was a gray Thursday morning. The kind where the sky feels too heavy and the world moves slow. I was digging through overdue invoices when the notification popped up. "Congratulations on the successful sale of the Pacific Lane property." At first, I smirked. Probably spam. Probably someone trying to sell me a timeshare or a dream I couldn't afford. But the sender wasn't random. It was a reputable real estate firm in Lake Oswego. And the subject line, Pacific Lane, hit me like a slap. I opened it. Sale confirmation, closing date, address. I stared at those numbers like they were written in a language I shouldn't understand. It was the same street Henry had once stopped at, the one he said fit my sunlight. A cold prickle ran down my spine. I grabbed my phone before I could think twice and called Mom. "Hey," I said, forcing casual. "Weird question. Did Grandpa ever buy a house on Pacific Lane?" There was a pause, too long, too deliberate. "Oh," that she finally said, her voice airy, fake light. "No, sweetheart. That deal fell through. Market shift, remember. Nothing ever happened." Something in my chest tightened. "Because I got this email," Mia, she cut in, all sweetness gone. "You need to stop opening things that aren't meant for you. You overthink. You always have." Her tone wasn't concern, it was control. And she hung up before I could answer. The rest of the day felt wrong, like the edges of the world were fraying. That email didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a crack in a wall I'd never questioned. The next morning, I called the real estate office pretending to be researching comparable sales. My voice shook, but I pushed through it. A woman named Linda looked up the file for me, her tone efficient and detached. "Yes, that property sold 3 years ago." My throat tightened. "And who was the seller?" Paper rustling. Keyboard clicking. "Then seller of record was Greg Carter." I nearly dropped the phone. "My father?" "My father sold a house I didn't know existed." I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the wall until the room felt tilted. That evening, Tyler called me out of nowhere. I could hear Mom's voice in the background, sharp, instructing. "Hey," he said, boredom dripping from his voice. "Mom said you're getting weird about something." Weird. Their favorite word whenever I asked for honesty. "I found out about Pacific Lane," I said. He sighed loudly. "Mia, come on. Dad made a financial decision. Don't make it dramatic." The anger rose fast, hot. It wasn't his decision to make. "You didn't even know about the house," he shot back. How could it matter? It was the kind of logic only someone protected from consequences could believe. He hesitated before adding, "Besides, they used it once for collateral. It wasn't a big deal. Collateral. A house meant for me, used like a bargaining chip." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Later that night, wrapped in a blanket on my cold apartment floor, I reread the email, and Tyler's words replayed like a poisoned echo. Every instinct I'd spent years burying screamed that something bigger was happening, something I wasn't supposed to find. I needed the truth. And I knew exactly where I'd find it next. The next morning, the sky was the color of wet concrete. I drove across town with the windshield wipers slapping hard, each swipe louder than the last. Henry's office sat in an older brick building, steady, grounded, everything I wasn't feeling. Nora Blake looked up the moment I stepped into the lobby. She always carried herself with quiet authority, but today her eyes flickered with something else, hesitation. "Mia," she said carefully, "you're here early. Mr. Lawson's out at a site meeting." Of course he was. Nothing in my life ever lined up neatly. "That's okay," I said, holding up a small gift bag just for cover. "I just needed to drop something off." Her gaze softened. "He talks about you all the time. He thought you'd be settling into the Pacific Lane house by now." My heart stuttered. "The what house?" my voice barely carried. Nora blinked, confused. "The one he bought you. He mentioned you'd moved in 2 years ago." 2 years. 2 years of lies told straight to Henry's face. "Can I see something?" I asked, though my throat felt tight. She studied me for a long moment. Something in my expression must have told her more than my words. Slowly she went to a filing cabinet, retrieved a manila folder, and handed it to me. Inside, the original deed, my name printed clearly. Then the next page, the sale agreement. Seller Greg Carter. I didn't breathe. Nora whispered, almost ashamed, "He trusted your parents to handle the paperwork." I walked out without remembering how my feet moved. The cold outside bit at my face, but all I could feel was the deep hot sting of betrayal. Sitting in my car, I gripped the folder so tightly the papers bent. Mom hadn't just lied. She'd tried to make me doubt my own sanity. That evening, I called Jade. She answered instantly. "Whose face am I punching?" she demanded. "They sold it," I said. "The house. Grandpa's house. They sold it." Silence. Then a low, furious exhale. "You're not letting this slide, Mia. I don't know how to fight them." "You don't need to fight them," she said. "You just need the truth. And the right person to hear it." She was right. The next morning, I walked into Ethan Cole's office. His space was severe, dark shelves, sharp lines, the smell of cedar. He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Henry told me you might come by," he said. I didn't sit. "My parents sold a house that wasn't theirs, and they used Grandpa's name for a loan." Ethan leaned forward. "Do you have proof I laid it all out?" "Emails, screenshots, the recorded call with my mother. Proof of lies, packaged in calm voices." He listened without interrupting. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "This isn't confusion or miscommunication," he said. "This is intentional." Hearing it out loud made something inside me settle, not comfortably, but decisively. But he added, "Henry, we'll need to see it shown plainly. He trusts their word more than you realize. We must let him reach the truth on his own terms." "So what do we do?" "We time the reveal," he replied, "and we do it where they can't escape it." As I left his office, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Please don't start anything during the holidays. Let's keep this peaceful." Right behind it, a call from Dad, Mia. "If you need money, we're buying into a new project. You can join us. It'll help you feel more secure." Secure. The irony nearly made me laugh. That night, I stood in my dim apartment staring at my reflection. My eyes weren't shaking anymore. "If they want perfect," I whispered, "I'll give them perfect." Tomorrow night at Christmas dinner, everything they'd buried would finally surface. Christmas Eve at Lawson Estate always looked unreal. Gold lights tracing the railings, a towering tree glowing in the corner. Everything arranged like a photo shoot, but beneath all the shimmer, the air felt tight, almost metallic. I walked in wearing my old denim jacket, snow dripping from the hem. Vanessa's eyes flicked over the jacket like it offended her decor. Greg muttered a greeting without standing. Tyler avoided eye contact completely. Only Henry rose, opening his arms. "There's my girl," he whispered, and for a second the world felt steady. But steady didn't last. We settled at the long mahogany table. The chandelier hummed overhead, crystals shaking slightly in the heat. The room smelled of rosemary, cinnamon, freshly carved turkey. It should have felt warm. It felt staged. Vanessa launched into a story about a PR client crisis she heroically saved. Greg bragged about a deal that sounded shakier the more he explained it. Tyler tapped at his phone, leg bouncing. Then Henry lifted his glass. The room quieted like someone pressed a button. "To family," he said. I swallowed hard. He turned to me. His eyes were soft, proud. "So Mia, how do you like the house?" The world dropped out. My mother's fork hovered midair before clattering onto her plate. Her wineglass slipped, shattering. Red spread across the white tablecloth in a bright, terrible bloom. Greg stiffened. Tyler's hand froze over his screen. I kept my voice steady. "What house, Grandpa?" The silence that followed felt like a living thing. Henry frowned, confused. "The house on Pacific Lane, the one I bought for you." Vanessa broke instantly. A brittle laugh. "Dad, she's just overwhelmed. You know Mia, she gets lost in things. She hasn't been stable lately." "Don't," I said coldly. Her eyes widened. Greg cleared his throat. "Let's not do this right now. I'll walk you through everything after dinner." "No," Henry said. The word hit like glass breaking. "Show me the deed, now." Vanessa paled. "Dad, please." Henry slammed his palm onto the table, the silverware jumping. "Bring me the deed." Footsteps appeared in the hallway. Ethan entered carrying a leather briefcase. Vanessa's face drained. "What is he doing here?" Henry didn't look at her. "I asked him to join us." Ethan set the briefcase on the table, opened it with a quiet click, and pulled out the documents. "The original deed," he said. My name glowed under the chandelier. Vanessa's breath hitched sharply. "And this," Ethan continued, placing the next page down, "is the sale agreement, signed by Greg Carter." Greg's voice cracked. "Henry, I can explain." Ethan cut him off. "He also used your name, sir, to secure a loan tied to this property." Henry went still. Completely still. "You used my name for a loan," he whispered. Greg's lips trembled. "It was temporary, I swear. And you sold my granddaughter's home." Henry's voice broke at the edges. Vanessa reached out as if touch could fix any of this. "Dad, we had no choice." He jerked back. "Don't talk to me about choice." Tyler finally spoke, a voice shaking. "I didn't know anything." Nora stepped forward quietly. "Your signature is on the witness line." Tyler froze. Henry rose slowly, painfully, gripping the back of his chair, as if steadying himself against the weight of the truth. He looked at my parents with an expression I'd never seen, not anger. Disappointment so deep it felt like the room tilted. From this moment on, he said, voice low but unwavering, "You do not speak for her. You do not take from her. You do not decide for her. Ever again." Vanessa's breath hitched. Greg slumped back. Tyler looked lost. Henry turned to me, eyes softening. "I'm sorry, Mia." For the first time, I didn't look away. I touched the silver ring on my finger and met my mother's eyes steady, calm, unshaken, and she looked away first. The morning after the dinner felt unreal, too quiet for a house that had witnessed so much wreckage. Snow blanketed the driveway untouched except for 2 long tire tracks leading away from the estate. Vanessa and Greg had left before sunrise. No goodbye, no message. Just the echo of slammed pride. Henry was in the sunroom when I found him sitting in a soft pool of winter light. His coffee sat untouched, steam long gone. He looked older than he had last night, but not defeated, more like someone who had finally stopped lying to himself. He motioned for me to sit. "I trusted them, because I wanted to believe they'd grown," he said quietly. "I thought if I provided enough, the rest would follow." He shook his head. "But generosity can't fix character." I didn't know what to say. The kind of betrayal he felt was deeper than mine. Then he slid an envelope across the table. My name was printed cleanly on the front. "I had Ethan redo everything last night," he said. "The house is yours again. No loopholes. No signatures hidden in the margins." My throat tightened. "Grandpa, I don't even know if I want it now." "You don't have to decide today," he said softly. "Just know it's waiting." Later that week, the city hummed with quiet gossip. My parents were removed from 2 boards. A major deal Greg had bragged about suddenly paused. No one knew the whole story, but they sensed enough to step back. I met Jade at our usual cafe. She listened as I laid it all out, the lies, the signature, the way everything cracked open in a single dinner. When I finished, she stirred her coffee and nodded. "You didn't beat them, Mia," she said. "You just stopped letting them beat you." And somehow that felt truer than anything. A few days later, I drove to Pacific Lane. The snow had melted into a thin shine along the sidewalk. The house looked exactly like it did in my memory, bright open waiting. As I stepped toward the porch, the neighbor Mrs. Holloway emerged with a red scarf wrapped tightly around her neck. "Oh, you're the real owner," she said knowingly. "Your parents came by once, took photos, told us their daughter was too sensitive to live here yet." Sensitive, there it was again. Their favorite label. I turned the key in my hand, letting it catch the morning light. "They thought they buried me," I whispered, "but they gave me the one thing they could never control." The lock clicked beneath my fingers, quiet and final. The door waited. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, make sure to subscribe. Stories like this don't just happen behind mansion doors, they happen in quiet kitchens, strained holiday dinners, and families that pretend everything is fine until it cracks. And if you've ever had to take back something that was supposed to be yours from the start, you're not alone. What happened at that dinner was only the beginning. There are still consequences coming, choices to make, and people who won't give up power quietly. Stay with me. This story isn't over.